modern university is not a sanctuary of higher education. It is a ruthless corporate hedge fund that uses ambitious 18-year-olds as a completely disposable agricultural product to inflate their own absolute financial power. Society programmed you to believe that walking across a graduation stage was your first major life achievement. In reality, graduating was your first fatal financial mistake. By accepting a piece of paper in exchange for massive, non-dischargeable debt, you voluntarily surrendered the most valuable compounding years of your life to a system that mathematically requires you to stay broke. You are not a student. You are a highly profitable financial derivative. The global economic infrastructure is shifting faster than at any point in human history, and the window to escape this obsolete academic matrix is closing today. If you click away from this video and choose to blindly trust the traditional roadmap, trading your youth for a fragile corporate salary, you are accepting a life sentence of financial slavery. You will spend the next 4 decades handing the majority of your physical energy over to the institutions that issued your debt, guaranteeing that your net worth remains dangerously close to zero. The cost of ignoring this reality right now is the total, irreversible destruction of your future sovereignty. But if you stay, I will dismantle the architecture of this institutional scam. I will reveal the exact psychological framework the elite use to bypass the academic trap, reject the slow lane, and build massive, permissionless leverage in total silence. This is the classified blueprint the academic system desperately hopes you never discover. How universities farm your wealth. To understand why your college degree is an anchor dragging you into poverty, you must look past the ivy-covered buildings and analyze the brutal mathematics of the academic business model. Universities are not charities, and they are not fundamentally in the business of education. They are multi-billion-dollar corporate endowments with a small educational front end attached to them simply to maintain their tax-exempt status. And their business model is pure genius. They sell you the illusion of future security, and they charge you an exorbitant, life-altering premium for it. But because 18-year-olds do not have hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid capital, the system relies on the student loan industry to bridge the gap and fund the scam. Student loans are the only type of debt in the modern financial system that cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. If you start a business and it fails, corporate laws protect you. If you buy real estate and the housing market crashes, you can hand the keys back to the bank and walk away. But if you buy a college degree and it turns out to be entirely worthless in the modern digital market, you are chained to that debt until the day you die. The system carries absolutely zero risk, and you carry all of the liability. They are farming your future labor. When you take out a massive loan to acquire a degree, the university gets paid in cash immediately. They invest that cash into their massive hedge funds, allowing their capital to compound tax-free. You, on the other hand, are left holding a depreciating piece of paper and a negative net worth. You have effectively agreed to work for free for the next 10 to 15 years just to pay off the ego tax of wanting to look educated to your family and friends. The institutions are getting richer by monetizing your biological desire for social validation. They farm your hope, they harvest your capital, and they leave you mathematically crippled before your adult life even begins. The business of programmed failure. The tragedy of the academic matrix is not just that it is overwhelmingly expensive. The true catastrophe is that it actively programs you to fail in the modern economy by teaching you the exact wrong metrics of success. Author M.J. DeMarco defines the traditional path of going to school, getting a job, and saving 10% of your salary as the slow lane roadmap. It is a roadmap designed in 1950 for an industrial economy that no longer exists. The university system trains you to be an obedient employee. It teaches you to wait for instructions, to fear making mistakes, to ask for permission to speak, and to trade your finite time for a linear paycheck. It prepares you perfectly to be a replaceable cog in a corporate machine. But true wealth is not built through a linear paycheck. Wealth is built through asymmetry, equity, and compounding. When you spend 4 to 6 years sitting in a classroom memorizing obsolete theories that you will forget the moment you pass the exam, you are giving up the most important variable in the compounding wealth equation: time. While you are trapped in a lecture hall worrying about a grade that no real-world investor will ever ask to see, the market is moving. By the time you graduate at 22 years old, completely buried in debt, you are not starting your financial journey at the starting line. You are starting miles behind it, trapped in a deep hole of negative equity. To survive the psychological stress of this trap, you will likely fall into the illusion of synthetic success. Because you feel poor, you will try to look rich. You will finance a car you cannot afford and rent an apartment in a city that drains your paycheck, just to signal to other people that your degree was worth the struggle. As financial psychologist Morgan Housel observes, wealth is what you do not see. It is the cars not purchased, the luxury not bought, and the funds allowed to compound. But the academic system forces you into a state of continuous insecurity, where you must constantly bleed your remaining capital just to prove to society that you are not a failure. Permissionless leverage versus rented status. If the traditional academic path guarantees a life of financial slavery, what is the alternative? How do the true 1% engineer their freedom while the masses drown in student loans? They completely reject the zero-sum game of rented status, and they aggressively acquire permissionless leverage. Investor Naval Ravikant notes that society operates on two distinct games. The status game is a primitive, hierarchical war where you can only move up if someone else is pushed down. A college degree is the ultimate status symbol. It is a synthetic badge you wear to prove your rank in the social hierarchy. But status does not pay you dividends. It costs you money to maintain. The elite play the wealth game. Wealth is a positive-sum game based on acquiring assets that earn while you sleep. And in the modern digital economy, the highest form of wealth generation is permissionless leverage. For centuries, leverage was guarded by gatekeepers. You needed permission from a bank to access capital, or permission from a union to access labor. A university degree used to be a necessary key to unlock those gates. But today, the gatekeepers have been completely annihilated by the internet. The ultimate leverage today is code and media. Software, algorithms, and digital content are armies of invisible, tireless workers. They do not sleep. They do not complain. They do not ask for a raise. They scale infinitely with zero marginal cost. And the most terrifying part for the academic matrix is that you do not need anyone's permission to create them. You do not need a piece of paper to write a piece of code. You do not need a professor's approval to record a video, write a newsletter, or build a decentralized brand. While the middle class goes into massive debt to buy rented status, the elite teach their children to build digital real estate. They starve their egos to feed their equity. They understand that a traditional resume is simply a list of people who previously owned your time. A portfolio of permissionless leverage is a mathematical guarantee that nobody will ever own your time again. The illusion of the corporate safety net. One of the most dangerous fictions sold by the university system is that a degree provides a corporate safety net. You are told that if you follow the rules, the corporation will take care of you. But in reality, relying on a single corporate paycheck is the ultimate single point of failure. In his analysis of risk, Morgan Housel points out that any system relying on one component to function is eventually doomed to fail. If you engineer a life where your entire survival depends on one HR department, one manager's mood, or one quarterly earnings report, you are living on the edge of the abyss. The middle class believes a salary is safe because it is predictable, but predictability is not security. When you are an employee, your income is linearly capped, but your risk is infinite. You can be fired with zero notice because of a macroeconomic shift you had nothing to do with. The corporation owes you nothing. When a crisis hits, the board of directors will protect their shareholders, not their employees. The degree hanging on your wall will not stop you from being liquidated on a Friday afternoon spreadsheet. The wealthy understand that true safety does not come from a job title. It comes from a margin of safety. It comes from having multiple streams of asymmetric income, a high savings rate driven by extreme frugality, and absolute paranoia about debt. When you carry massive student loans, you eliminate your margin of safety. You cannot take risks. You cannot start a business. You cannot walk away from a toxic boss because you need the next paycheck to service your institutional debt. The academic system sells you a safety net, but what they actually deliver is a straitjacket. They force you into a position of absolute dependency, ensuring that you remain a compliant worker who is too terrified to ever rebel against the system. Opting out of the zero-sum game. The greatest intrinsic value of capital has nothing to do with buying luxury goods or signaling your prestige to strangers. The highest dividend that money pays is the ability to give you absolute, unyielding control over your own time. True wealth is waking up every morning with the sovereign power to say, I can do whatever I want today. It is the ability to walk away from a toxic environment, to ignore an obsolete corporate hierarchy, and to completely insulate your family from the chaos of a collapsing economy. When you allow the university system to chain you to a mountain of debt for a piece of paper, you are voluntarily surrendering your future autonomy. You are playing a rigged game where the house always wins, but you have the power to opt out. You must recognize that the money and time you spent on your degree is a sunk cost. Do not fall into the psychological trap of defending a bad decision just because you were the one who made it when you were 18 years old. Do not stay in a miserable corporate career just to justify the ridiculous price of the diploma hanging on your wall. Poverty is a series of reactive decisions driven by the desperate need for external validation. Wealth is a proactive, clinical architecture designed for absolute sovereignty. Stop funding the academic matrix. Starve your ego. Acquire code, build media, and construct your permissionless leverage in total silence. Become the architect of your own escape. Hit the subscribe button to join the minority building true financial sovereignty. But before you go, the debate is open. Be brutally honest. Is the modern university system providing real education, or is it just a highly engineered corporate hedge fund exploiting the hopes of the middle class? Defend your reality in the comments below. Let's see who actually understands the math of the trap. Master your mind, build your system. See you in the next protocol.